Welcome to Local Edition. I'm Brad Pomerance. My Assemblyman is here. Yes, my Assemblyman. His name is Sebastian Ridley-Thomas. He represents significant portions of Los Angeles County. And are you the youngest Assembly member?
I was.
You were.
When you elected me in 2013.
Right. Who is now?
Sabrina Cervantes. She's too much younger than I am.
From the Inland Empire.
Yes.
But what's surprising to me, there are 120 legislators in Sacramento. Only 11 are millennials, essentially.
Yes.
It's a pretty low number.
Relative to the population of millennials. You can understand it in some sense because the youngest millennials are just finishing high school, about 17 years old. The oldest millennials are in their mid-30s, almost 37.
So when does millennials start?
Well, generally we think 1980.
Okay.
Ends around 2000.
Right. So if you consider 1980, that means if you're 37, you're on the cusp of being an older millennial. And look, I know it's difficult to get elected to the state legislature. It takes some fundraising, some prowess. Oftentimes, you're moving up from a city council, school board, water board. But I don't know. I would have thought there would be 20. Maybe 20 members.
Ideally,
So what is it in your mind?
Well, it's a number of things. I think that it is the lack of civic education and awareness that there was a serious push on private sector executive development, management training, and leadership, and it's like what you see in medicine. There were a dearth of people who were preparing themselves to go into public service.
I also wonder, sir, if we can even date back to Watergate and think about how Watergate began the era of more intense cynicism surrounding elected officials. And so, when you consider kind of from Roosevelt to Nixon, public service was quite honorable. I mean, look, there's always been times where we've seen scoundrels, but it was seen as a profession that one aspire toward.
Right.
Now, I talk to folks, my generation, your generation, they wouldn't even dream of considering an elective office.
And I think that the election in November, the national election, may have crystallized that, but also broken through some of that, because you see people who never considered running, who are now stepping up in former labor leaders in Los Angeles who are running for state senate.
Of course.
Nonprofit leaders. Any number of media personalities who are taking the plunge, celebrities who are thinking about
What's interesting about the November election, and this is not something that I am trying to state for my own opinion, but we have heard people say that we elected the least qualified individual to run for president versus the most qualified official to run for president. Again, these are just memes that you hear, but it does speak to the kind of view that folks have of their elected officials, that the Trump candidacy was able to capture the imagination of so many.
Yes, it was. And the positive outcome, I think, is that it awakened the level of consciousness that was otherwise largely dormant.
But did it though?
I think that it did. I think it did, because that's what the massive protests have been about. That's why you see organizations like Run for Something or the Millennial Action Project, that is the partner organization of the California Millennial Caucus, or the House Future Forum that U.S. Representative Eric Swalwell leads with the support of House Minority Leader Nancy Pelosi. That's what they are talking about. That's what the Center for Popular Democracy's new PAC is talking about. Well, it's not a PAC, it's a 501c4. And the energy you see around the ACLU, where they brought in the $12 million, unprecedented small dollar fundraising haul, or the work with Our Revolution, or the race for the Dem Party chairmanship, and then all of the delegates that elected chairmanship. All of that energy is associated with the renewed awakening of civic consciousness. People are relearning post-November what the basics of civics are. They're going back to school themselves. They're taking the time out to do the homework. And you see people who are motivated through Indivisible, through showing up to town halls, through writing in letters, through considering running for office, through expressing their views on public matters from the local to the federal in ways that we hadn't seen in many years.
Or is this new blood, or is this rejuvenated blood?
I think it is both, but there's a significant influx of the new, and then those, particularly who are on digital media and social media, are more informed. Young people are getting educated and informed about these issues. They're reading CBO reports, they're reading LAO reports, they're reading Office of Budget Management or California Department of Finance reports that you never would see. And the reportage is there. The reporters are emulating Brad Pomerance.
Well, I
they're
appreciate
doing their
you
homework.
saying that. My question then becomes, since we do have this new blood coming in, will the party structures, will the leadership welcome this new blood as they consider running for local city councils, water boards, school boards, state assembly, state senate?
Well, our work has had the blessing of the Speaker, Anthony Rendon. That's why the California Millennial Caucus was founded.
We should mention that.
Yes,
you have this new caucus.
Yes, it's formally co-led by Kevin Kiley of the Granite Bay area and Ian Calderon, who's the Assembly Majority Leader. He was the youngest elected prior to my election, and he really broke the barrier that led to the other 10 of us coming. He was the first that got there. And he is to be given credit for shouldering a great deal of that burden of being young and working through. I think he was 26 at the time. I was running at 25 and took office in early 26 myself.
I also want to speak to you about compensation. Because look, in the final analysis, especially in California, this is an expensive state in which to live. And it's become very in vogue to attack politicians' salaries. And politicians will say, I took a salary cut, or I'm not going to vote for a raise. And, you know, look, you could say this is a profession of public service, but we all have bills.
Right. And in the state legislature, you have to live in a different city if you're not from the Sacramento area. There are only a few representatives of this area. So
you have two homes.
You have to have dwelling. You have to have somewhere to lay your head. And one of those has to be your permanent residence.
Of course.
We know that.
Yeah, we know some folks have gotten in trouble.
They have.
On that front.
So that is going to be a barrier for young people. I don't know that the voters fully appreciate that.
But how do we get to a place where we recognize, in my opinion, you get what you pay for?
Yeah, I mean, I think most people get it. I think as the economy does better and you see greater alleviation of poverty, then you will see greater appetite to support the decent compensation of legislators. And we're the highest paid in the country.
But you think about, I mean, I think Santa Monica's right outside your district. It's a very large, relatively speaking, city. Their council members get paid dirt.
Yeah, they do.
You know, so who's going to run for Santa Monica City Council? Rich people, retired people. I mean, God bless them, but, you know, I'd want some young folks to run, or even people, you know, in the middle range. How do they do that?
Yeah, it's something to examine. I think Santa Monica may be a city of 100,000.
That's a real city.
Yeah, it's a real city, and it has a very large budget.
And significant impact on the region.
Huge impact because of this
Let's talk
coast.
more about this when you come back, okay?
Yes, okay.
Sure. Okay, his name is Sebastian Ridley-Thomas, member of the California State Assembly. I'm Brad Pomerance. So glad you're with us from Sacramento on Local Edition.